The biggest debate right now among Tesla investors is whether or not you think the compact car has been scrapped altogether, or if you think it's been delayed at all, or maybe not at all. David Barron, son of billionaire Tesla bull Ron Barron, just now said that if they ditched the cheaper car, that would be thesis changing for them. Having said that, he confirmed that he'd actually be very surprised if Tesla took the Model 2 off the table. So we've got Jeff Lutz with us and Alexandra Mertz. Let's start with you, Jeff. You have the most experience from us. Did we actually hear from Tesla saying that they're no longer going to make the Model 2? All these rumors going around and people misinterpreting what they might have heard. Tell us what you're thinking.
Yeah, no, we didn't. and when they change what they say, then we can have a different conversation, or if there's something to infer. But let me try to help. What I try to do in the shows with you, Herbert, is try to overlay using some of my background experience and see if we can make sense of what's happening and what Tesla is actually talking about. So what's Elon is most recently as the earnings call that they just had the third week in January, really talked about an evolutionary manufacturing process, and where there's going to be brand new capital designed for the factory, and they're really focused on driving the process time down to build a vehicle. When you drive the process time down, you're improving your capital efficiency, you're reducing the amount of capital you actually need, you're improving your labor efficiency, you're reducing the overall labor you need per vehicle, and they're also going to figure out how to do this in kind of a more compact manner in terms of how much floor space they need. So what I believe Tesla is actually doing is they're focusing on building a platform, a next generation platform. And we've even seen them show this in an investor day. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't change their mind from showing us a presentation a couple months ago to today, but I see no reason for them to commit or decommit or change from building a platform that can produce multiple lower cost vehicles from them, whether in different form factors, or whether it's a compact vehicle, whether it's a robotaxi, or whether it's a van, or whatever form factor you may think. So in summary, I believe Tesla is working on a next generation platform that's based on the unboxed model, which is a modular parallel assembly process where there's the product is built and configured in stages and then comes together in more of a parallel manufacturing approach versus a serial line approach. It should, again, help them with equipment efficiency, labor efficiency, and the big metric is the two big metrics are reducing the total process time to produce a vehicle and improving the output per square meter of all the factory space that they use, which will help them with utilization and will help them basically get more out of a gigafactory rectangle, that we see from the sky looking down. So that's what I believe Tesla is doing. I've heard nothing that would say that they're not doing that. Now, inside of that, when you're doing an unboxed model and when you're changing your approach to manufacturing, this is a new version of the factory. It's also somewhat new and novel from a product development perspective. But what it actually allows them to do, it allows them to do two things in the development a big thing in the development process and a big thing on the manufacturing operational side. I'll start with the manufacturing operational side. It's going to allow them to do very late stage postponement or change in decisions about what they're doing in the factory on that particular day. Yes, they're going to have to bring in kits of material based on the vehicle that's going out the door, but they're going to have the ability to change over configurations in the factory much faster than a conventional Tesla factory today, and far faster than a conventional auto factory today. When you walk into a Tesla factory today, there's dedicated Model 3 line, dedicated Model Y, and then there's some shared processes, of course, but they're basically dedicated line operations. And with Unboxed, they will have the ability to do very quick changeover and ultimately postpone what they're building when they build it and make those decisions later. That's powerful for a factory because it allows them to react to consumers, react to demand faster, whether demand's going up or demand's going down. It allows them to react better on both sides. On the product development side of doing an unboxed model, it allows them to also make late stage decisions about what they're prioritizing in terms of product development. So they work on the platform, they progress the platform, and then they work on the individual offshoot vehicles that come off of that platform. But a lot of the work goes into the platform, the new platform motors, the inverters, and so forth. That's where a lot of this work up front is having. So a little bit long-winded, but long story short, Tesla's working. What I believe Tesla is doing, this is my opinion, and they've said nothing to change this opinion, is that they're working on a next generation vehicle platform. Will be a compact vehicle, will be a robotaxi, and maybe other vehicle form factors as such over different stages of time.
Okay, I just want to clarify
Yes.
what you just said, right? So there is the unboxed model, but you're saying there's it's zero chance, very little chance that they've scrapped the Model 2 altogether, and then two, because they have the unboxed model of how they create the cars. If they wanted to, they can then create the compact car when they want to, as opposed to saying that it's going to be delayed or anything like that. Can you just clarify that a little bit more?
Yeah, there's no reason for them to scrap the Model 2 now, because their development process and their manufacturing process are going to allow them to make late stage decisions. So there's no reason necessarily to scrap a program unless they've got data that says people don't want to buy and drive a vehicle at a $25,000 price point, which I don't think that data ultimately exists. And that's normally why you would scrap a program this far in advance. So long story short, they are enabling a platform that will allow them to do multiple vehicle types. They're not going to be locked in a year and a half, or so from launch and have to make a decision now about what they're doing.
Okay, Alexandra. So then when you saw this, not quite betting the company, which to me means that they're not going to just scrap everything, but going balls to the wall for autonomy. So when he said that, does that mean that they are now prioritizing, but also completely just ignoring the Model 2?
Well, first of all, Elon actually was very clear in a prior post to that, that they're not canceling the Model 2. So I don't even know why people continue beating that drum. There is no point beating that drum. Maybe delayed. The one point we all agree is current priority is robotaxi, and I've explained that a couple of times. That is where the highest margin is. That is where Tesla has a unique mode, where they are far ahead of any competition, and where they should put the priority now that they're reassured enough to know that this is going to happen. So is it without risk? Of course it is not. So balls to the wall. I actually had, I obviously understood something completely different, but that's just the European lady in me. But thank heavens there is Jeff, who put out a post last night explaining that this is a term that doesn't mean what I thought it meant. You want to explain that again, Jeff?
Actually, there's foundations, I believe, in aviation and in steam engines. It's basically regarding the controls and the actual control in the case of aviation, being able to go kind of in one extreme to the other. So I don't think it's worth a lot more time. It's obviously has a much cruder definition you can put on it, but it's essentially going all out. But again, I think Elon's even clarified it in his tweet. It's not like they're leaving themselves with no redundancy and no option. I think that's why, again, this is a vehicle platform they're developing, and then they'll have the ability to pivot if they need to pivot.
Yes, and the other thing I try to emphasize, and we had so much news in the last couple of days with the proxy and all that, but just before the proxy came out, is robotaxi and FSD are obviously two different service lines, both with high revenue potential and high profitability. But there are bots, there's still going to be cars, there's still going to be energy that's growing. So, don't you worry. And there are markets that are not ready for neither robotaxi nor FSD. Europe, Mexico, South America, Africa, some of the Asian countries. So, they're not going to give that whole market away. But $25,000 Teslas are wonderful, but $25,000 EVs will exist without Tesla. So yes, they will make that compact car, and it will be the best compact car in that price range. But that is a competitive market. It is much better today to concentrate on something where they have this unique advantage and a high profitability rather than straight away going to that product. And I completely agree with Jeff. It's not scrapped. It's not canceled. It will come. But the priority has shifted of where we're currently putting money. And actually, that actually happened a while ago. That happened when it started to be known, and it was in one of Morgan Stanley's updates that that Tesla has been purchasing a lot of NVIDIA H100. So when this filtered through that Reuters scoop or whatever it was supposed to be, it has been consumed. And we know that now because stuff has leaked from February and from March. We're now mid-April. So this thing has been in the making within Tesla for weeks and short months. It finally leaked. Probably would have been better it wasn't leaking, but there is no reason, and Elon said that straight away, to believe that Reuters headline that this Model 2 compact car, whatever you want to call it, is canceled. It is not canceled.
Okay, can you guys explain what you think? That a lot of people are concerned that fine, it's not canceled, but if robotaxi is delayed to be able to deliver the revenue that you're expecting it to deliver in 2 years and 3 years, because people think regulation is going to take a lot longer than you expect, then their second wave is not coming. How do you both feel about that, Jeff?
When you say second wave, are you saying if robotaxi is not available by the time the platform's available?
If the compact car, which is the second wave, if that's going to be delayed, it's going to be delayed by 1 or 2 years. Robotaxi is not yet going to deliver the revenue at that point. What are you expecting?
You see, I don't know that. I don't know that to be true at all. What I know to be true is that they're working on a next generation vehicle platform, and they'll be able to pivot and decide. Some people think something's going first or second. I don't know, to be honest. And I think Tesla, quite frankly, once they've developed a platform that they could actually do 2 vehicle types in parallel, in my opinion, and they should be able to do that. So I don't know. I don't know how to just read, like, I mean, I can read articles, I can read all the rumors everybody else is reading, but man, when you're on the outside of a company and to try to assess like what program you think that they put ahead of another program, boy, that's really hard to say. I mean, what you'd really want to hear, I don't even want to talk about it publicly on a podcast, but there's ways, I think, to understand externally if they've canceled one project and moved one over another, but I wouldn't even want to discuss that. I don't think there's enough information to say that they've moved something out materially 1 or 2 years. I just don't think that there's enough information to say that. I think what Tesla's unveiling on 8.8 is robotaxi functionality and capability, and like, what will this look like, and what will be delivered at a various point in time. I think they're going to enable that functionality on existing vehicles. This is where I know if we have a debate, I think they will enable the functionality at some point on existing vehicles to people's choosing if they want to do that or not. I think they will enable this functionality on a purpose-built robotaxi off the new platform, and I think there'll be a compact car off the new platform as well where it could run off of. So that's how I'm thinking of it until I hear more from Tesla.
Yeah. Alexandra?
Exactly the same. And I still maintain I want to have that bet with you, Herbert. Or did I win already? Right? 8.8, I expect it to be the unveil. Maybe we see a car. Maybe we see just a platform, how they're going to build the base for the robotaxi and different other models of it, vans, whatever. But for me, what I'm looking forward is the business case. Who are going to operate these robotaxis? By when will we have those and all that? And then, as I stated in the last episode, existing owners can join the platform soon. I'm still convinced this can happen late 2024. Inventory cars, if we're ready, may be used for that rather than to be put up on resale. And then when that robotaxi is ready, 2025, we will see that will join, and all other unboxed models that will be built then and are sold in the legislations that can run robotaxis will have that functionality. I completely agree with Jeff. And do you already admit defeat, or you want to wait a couple of weeks?
Just to get everybody up to speed, the audience here. Last Cyber Bulls, we had a pretty good debate between me and Alexandra. she believes that when 8.8 comes, or not 8.8, but that's the very first time that Tesla releases robotaxi, she thinks that it's going to be with current customer cars. And I said, there's no way it's going to be the dedicated robotaxi. They'll do it in a small pilot first, and then later they'll update it to the customer cars. I've been rethinking. I did not say. I've decided that you're right. I'm close. I'm still leaning towards my opinion. I wanted to point out
the robotaxis that are out there today. Just a hint from companies that rhyme with booze and Baymo. You think those are brand new? Are those remanufactured cars? Or are those?
They're not customer owned cars, Jeff. They are owned by the company. They've been checked and made sure that it's all secure. That's not something that you're just going to take a car off.
Checked and made what secure?
Well, you want to make sure that all the cameras are working properly. You want to make sure that you have communication.
Tesla knows
to the
if
car
your camera's working properly.
It's going to be
They've been working for years. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't believe
Herbert. There's two brains here against one. I mean, there's a lot of brain power.
I've not been moved to the dark side yet. Okay, I still believe.
Okay,
we'll talk about the dark side.
Robotaxi is a dedicated robotaxi. That's what they're going to unveil. By the way, I want to point out something very interesting. Oh, yeah. The two of you said this, and I discovered something because I did a show, and with Nicholas, with Hans, and Hans pulled back the Walter Isaacson chapter, and he said there, Elon Musk said. On that chapter, he said that internally, we've been calling the next generation platform robotaxi, but that it's actually the next generation platform. So when he says robotaxi, we're going to unveil it, it could very well mean what you both are saying, that it could actually be the next generation platform, which says that here's the robotaxi model, but here's also, the compact car too. It could be, or variations of the theme. Because he just said that term robotaxi became generically what they've been calling the next gen platform.
It's going to be called Auto soon. But we're getting there.
Yeah. Okay. So this is good. You guys explained that because even just this morning, Dan Ives was on the Yahoo News. He was being interviewed and he said robotaxi is not going to come until 2030. He's deathly afraid that Tesla's not going to have any new growth curves for the next 6 years.
I mean, Herbert, hold it a second. We're all old enough. And I actually missed that train. So I feel the pain because I didn't believe in it. We're all old enough to remember 2006, right? I had this Nokia phone that had a round screen that you could open. I felt like the most elegant, chic lady in the world with my Nokia phone. And then 2007 came out this iPhone from Apple, and I thought, well, what's that? It doesn't have a round screen. And then I slowly moved to BlackBerry, where I could type my emails, and I felt I was such a brilliant executive lady that had it all in her handbag. And I didn't move to smartphones, and then Apple did what Apple did, and I jumped on that train much too late, and I was stuck in my old world. And today I watch Dan Ives and I watch Gary and I watch all these people, and I think, my gosh, we're all old enough, all of us three, those 2 threes, to have lived through that, and they don't see it this time. And I can identify so well with it because not that I respect it, because I hope they would see it, but because it happened to me last time. This, it is a huge shift. This is a change. This is a monumental change. And if you don't trust this, and if you don't see the need for it, and if you're like, oh, but I like driving my car. Of course, everybody loves driving my car. I love driving my car as well. But if you don't see the utility of it, if you don't think this through, look, I have to go to the airport a couple of times in the next couple of weeks. My son is getting married. I'm going to Europe. I'm going to, hopefully, to the Tesla shareholder meeting. I'm hopefully going to the, if I could have a robotaxi here from Santa Barbara driving me down to LAX, right? Not having to hassle with anything else, knowing it's a Tesla, knowing it's clean, knowing it will get me there safely. I mean, I would pay double. I know I don't have to, but I would pay double to get there. And think it through, how many miles that is, what that currently costs me, how much it could cost, how much that is, if Tesla takes a 20-30% cut in it, how much that will bring to Tesla. So once you accept that this change will come and that there are there's only one, maybe two or three that will be able to master this and then license it to others. The floodgates open, right? And so I honestly just want to encourage everybody to not let yourself discouraged by these naysayers who don't see it. I was one more than 15 years ago. I didn't see it, so I can understand where they are. But when I see Dan Ives, who's been running on the TV screens for a couple of days again, repeating the same stuff he's been fed, it's a shame. It's a shame that these people don't get out of their, I need this car model, I need these colors, I need updates of these models, whatever. They are still in a car environment. They are not in a tech environment.
Yeah, it's the timing is the issue, okay? So he's saying 6 years. I believe in future robotaxi, but it'll take 6 years, 2020 till 2030. Can I press you both to give me a date of when you think, and again, it's, what is the definition? It's not just robotaxi in one city. Let's say robotaxi in 3 cities. When is that going to happen?
Can I make a comment here? You don't even enter the debate of, do you think robotaxis are coming in a year or 5 years? You just have to think a little bit logically about Tesla and, the thousands of people that do hardware development at Tesla. First off, they're working on a next generation vehicle platform. They told us they're doing that. I told you the reasons why you would do a vehicle platform and all the benefits that you would get. Why would they logically pull back from doing that? That's the first question you have to ask yourself. The second question you have to ask yourselves is, if you think worst case and you say, well, all they're doing right now is designing a robotaxi, and they're not even going to do a platform. Well, what do you think those hardware people are going to be doing when that vehicle is done? Do you think you're going to be sitting there until 2030 doing nothing? No, they're going to be working on the next variant. Tesla wants to electrify multiple categories of product to solve transport and make it fully electrified. So they want to do the van. They want to get down to that price segment from a compact vehicle perspective. What you hear Elon talking about with autonomy is, you hear Tesla has capital decisions and choices that they have to make. They don't have an infinite amount of CapEx that they can buy and spend every year. This work is capital intensive. So there may be trade-offs of, do I expand, when do I start my expansion and build my factory in Mexico? If I'm doing something in India, when? If I'm doing something in Indonesia, when? If I'm doing so those may be the trade-offs. So when he says like all in on robotaxi, that to me means they're restructuring the company for that, and they're making their capital decisions all pointed towards that, which means buying all that compute and buying all that capability. And again, these hardware teams aren't just going to sit around and do nothing. There's going to be a refresh of the Model Y. And trust me, this platform is going to take a tremendous amount of resources to do and launch. And that's what they're working on. They would not scrap this platform. It makes way too much sense. And it allows them to be able to do multiple vehicle variants off of that platform. So I just think you don't even have to even get to is robotaxi a year from now or 5 years from now. The logic you have to have is, why would you not do the platform? 1, 2, what would these engineers be doing for the next 5 or 6 years? They're not going to be sitting on their hands doing nothing. Sorry.
Yep.
I went off kind of off tangent, but not really.
No, I think this is the whole point of this whole conversation of this first segment, right? Is that they've created the unbox model, allows them to create many different kinds of variations of vehicles, whether it's robotaxi or not. And then when he says, I'm going to go all in on robotaxi, that it's like, to do otherwise, it's like you're just making a variation of a horse carriage. What I hear him is like, he's ready to go, like you said, the whole business change, right? It's a robotaxi. Doesn't mean, so he's going to work on the software, it's going to work on the data centers, he's going to work on the whole network of how this is offered. Doesn't mean that they can't produce another vehicle when they need to, if they need to.
But look at Apple.
Will.
Apple is doing a new phone per year, right? They will do multiple variants of cars, but the car will be much more of a hardware carrying a software. The software is going to be, people will buy a Tesla because it will be a self-driving car. They will love still the car. They will still love, being in the Tesla universe, but it is going to be a decision to have a self-driving car. And that's important for $25,000 car buyers and for $50,000 car buyers and for $100,000 car buyers. You're gonna, who would today buy a Nokia phone? Who would today buy a Motorola phone? And they could do as many models as, excuse me, sorry, I know this is the word I shouldn't say. I'm so sorry, Jeff. I love you still. No doubt about that. Forgive me. But, so the point is we're moving away from a hardware company. That doesn't mean we're not doing hardware anymore. We're going to do hardware as much as people want the hardware, but we're going to sell the hardware because the software is on it.
Okay, sounds good. Let's move on to the next topic, or basically, we think that this topic is probably the biggest impact to why the stock sentiment is it is. Let's talk about the Tesla stock sentiment. And actually, I had down here flip-floppers. I'll bring that up. It's probably all connected together at this point, right? So the mood on Tesla has been pretty bad for the last, let's call it year to date. It is the worst performing from the S&P 500, continues to perform poorly. People don't believe when Elon is talking about robotaxi. They think that we've got a lost year, as you can see. I think most people has agreed that this rest of the year is going to be low earnings, low growth, all that. But what also interests me is those people who, there's quite a number of folks, and I'm not going to list their names, but they're who were such major Tesla bulls, who were saying such great things about the company, and then now not only are no longer bulls, but and staying quiet, and maybe saying negatives, that's fine, but in complete hatred of Tesla and saying the opposite of what they were saying just a few, 6 months, a year ago. And even if the same thesis has stayed the same. That's the part that I don't get. Anybody want to jump in and answer that question?
On that. Yeah, I can start on that. First of all, on the stock price, it's been a roller coaster for 2 years, right? So of course, it's always easy to just limit it to a certain time frame. But remember, end of 2022. Remember how it doubled then back in 2023. Now it's back down a third. So it's been a roller coaster. It's a difficult year for a couple of reasons. First of all, political, right? Obviously, Elon engages with any subject that's coming up, so he's not backing off anything. So that creates a lot of controversy. EV sales have been more sluggish. Economy has been more sluggish in this segment than we had hoped for, and the focus is shifting. So at the same time, there are lots of good news, but people ignore it. There is no compute restraint anymore for FSD. That is actually a huge positive. We're having now a date for robotaxis and all that, but people seem to see only the negative. So that's one thing. Second point is, with huge variations in the stock price, and today a stock price at $150, $160, where we were at 420 at one point, right? So there are people that bought, including me, over 400 because I'm constantly dollar cost averaging into it. And if that was your only investment, obviously you're way under and you're hurt, because if you focus on today's price and see the potential loss you have, this is painful. But I just want to recall to everybody, it's no loss until you haven't sold it. And in stock, you should be in stock for a 3 to 5 year horizon minimum. And then, sometimes it's just good to sit it out and not watch it every day and look at it. So if that is painful for you, do understand, while you're not in any intention to sell, it really doesn't matter. I know it's difficult to sometimes turn it off, but that's actually the best advice I can give you. The third point is those that turn bitter. And sadly enough, some of those have been those big warriors of the 2010 to 2020 Tesla phase, right? So we had a couple of people that were, always very, very engaged, pro Elon, pro Tesla, who couldn't digest the Twitter purchase, who couldn't digest Elon being more politically, at least center, if not center-right, who couldn't digest certain of Elon's controversial posts about transgenderism, about racism, about I don't know what else. It doesn't matter to me, but I guess if you're sensitive to these subjects, this can be very hurtful. And at that moment, we saw some people turn at least their public image, which sometimes only is there for clickbait, right? So don't always believe everything you see. And obviously, in the same way, we loved certain people, but only knew them online, never met them, whatever. Sometimes you just had too much confidence in people, and then sometimes you get disappointed. But again, so some of these people turned, and that becomes, painful for the other people, because you felt you had trustfully a friend here, somebody that is like you, fighting the FUD, a warrior, a pro-Tesla warrior, and then you suddenly see these people becoming more of a FUD creator, or at least enabler, using quite big accounts to repost stuff that wouldn't have the same visibility, but that does create controversy. So again, just let me remind you, some of it is just there to get clicks and reactions, because that comes with Twitter. There is a monetary side to it now, like that or you don't like that, but it does exist. And the other is just bitterness and sometimes just disappointment in some very personal subjects that then bring up reactions that are unfortunate and I find not helpful. But it is what it is. The silver lining of all this is it is a free speech platform, right? The X platform has really proven, and Elon has made this so that even people that hate him can say that they hate him, and it engages us. And sometimes these people may have some valid points to be discussed and thought through. So be it. And we just have to live through it. It does hurt a bit, because obviously, you'd hope have found real friends, and then you realize it's not the case.
Hi, Herbert.
Jeff? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was great, Alexandra. Thanks. So on the stock sentiment, a couple of things. Yeah, there are some pretty big accounts that are talking about things, and I've always kind of been a little bit sensitive to this. I think people should be able to say whatever they want, but it almost should be kind of like a bit of a disclaimer. Like, I mean, I wouldn't be taking product development or manufacturing or supply chain advice from a doctor. I wouldn't be taking medical advice from a supply chain leader. I just wouldn't do that. There's plenty of medical doctors, by the way, that are big Tesla fans on the platform. And if they have an opinion about something in the medical field, or if I have a question and they're commenting, I place a lot of value if it's like a medical topic. I place value on, you can say whatever you want, you can express whatever opinions, but there's some pretty big accounts that try to weigh in on like major heavy tech related to AI, full self-driving. And it's okay. I mean, express your opinion, but at some point, these accounts should also be like, in my opinion. Like, they should preface these things like, in my opinion, and then say it, because some of these accounts carry a tremendous amount of weight on all things Tesla. And I think that's part of the thing that could be a driver of the sentiment of just people kind of just commenting on everything and everybody just kind of absorbing it as fact. So I would seek out advice if like there's a question on like vehicle platforms and what they're doing. Maybe think through and look at accounts that have experience in product development, product launch. If there's a question about like how Wall Street is going to perceive a particular item, well, then there's particular accounts that are for that. But I think there's a kind of accounts trying to be all things for everything. And I mean, they can do what they want. And if people subscribe and comment and like, well, then they've created something for themselves and they're going to leverage it and use it. But I think that's ultimately driving, some amount of confusion and something to do with the sentiment. But quite frankly, if you look at the underlying what's happening with Tesla, they're earning less money per vehicle sold. They're earning less money per quarter, and that's naturally going to weigh on. It's going down. Tesla's always been in this position of being kind of a challenger, not making money, and eventually they broke even, and then eventually they started making tremendous amount of money. And then when COVID hit, they had supply, no one else did, and they continue driving things up and up, and and you notice the sentiment on Twitter was quite positive of all things Elon, quite positive of all things, and then that shifted pretty quickly as the business results changed too. So my advice is to seek advice and to seek input from accounts that have some specialty in the topic, and maybe try to ignore some that are kind of like speaking on all things sometimes, and maybe not fully grasping the topic. But anyway,
Right.
what do I know?
mean, so, well, so I guess what I'm focusing on, right, is the people who not only are just saying negative things, which is fine. You can say the truth, what you think are facts. And I completely agree. And that's why I love the debate right now. Is the robotaxi delayed? What's going to be happening in the middle? This kind of the conversation. That's all fine. It's the people who used to be so pro Tesla and now flip-flop, but they're bitter. they're actually promoting Tesla Q stuff, right? And then that's the thing where you're going, what's going on here? Like, why are you going to that dark end? It's okay for you to say, hey, the rose-colored glasses are off. Now I can see what Tesla's really like. They're really just a car company. They're not making as much margin. I think they're a bad investment. Great. I love that. That's good. But the point about, just complete hatred, complete laughing that they want the company to fail now. Why? It's just an investment, isn't it?
And hence enabling Tesla Q, because obviously they can then recuperate that and see if even this big Tesla account, repeats our stuff or confirms our stuff. It's just it's so unnecessary. But I tell you, part of it is clickbait. Part of it is to stay relevant and to play that role of the villain that is convincible or whatever it is. It's a bit sad. I don't want to psychoanalyze because I can't. I'm not the professional in that field. All I can say is usually we can pinpoint when people are hurt. For example, Ross, I know for a fact when he was hurt. It was the day he pulled back from his board candidature, first quarter of 2023, because he was promised a discussion with management about how he would run Tesla and how advertising is important and whatnot. And so he got that invite, but they said you have to pull it back before. He publicly pulled out of his candidature, sent the registered letter that was needed for that, went to Investor Day in March, had half an hour, but didn't have half an hour with Elon or didn't have half an hour with the top management, just had half an hour with some people of the executive branch, and felt let down, felt like they didn't hear him or they didn't listen to him or they didn't now apply what he was suggesting to them. And then, since then, it's been catastrophe. Obviously, he sold most of his stock. He has been publicly and privately contacting his clients for whom he manages account, telling them to get out of the stock. Lots of them have ignored his recommendations, but he was sour. Really, it's not even bitter anymore. It's really gone to the sour end. And I think that's what happened with some of those bigger names. They all had one click moment when their passion or life or love or whatever for Tesla stopped, and then this whole energy that they put into the stock now became the reverse. But it gives them an audience. Like Ross is invited on CNBC or on Yahoo Finance and whatever, because they know they will get that. So that's what I call it clickbait. It's not only on Twitter, it's on X, it's also on TV, it's also in the press. They get named, and for them, exposure. He's a communications major. He knows very well that every time he appears or his fund or his firm or his name appears, this brings him future clients, this brings him attention. And California, we've talked about that. In California, there are people who hate Elon, so they may invest now with him because they feel here he is. So don't always think this is just innocent personal feelings. There is also a money side to this all.
Yeah, and I just wanted to make a comment on it. Just the people that think that they can manage like Tesla from a Twitter account, or just like I don't know how to describe it, but I think it's one thing to say like, look, I wonder if Tesla's considered this or considered that. It's another thing to really put yourself in your shoes where you're actually going to sleep and waking up, sometimes different places, factories, whatever, and you have all that accountability. You have the thousands of people that work for you. You have all that product accountability. You have the safety of the product. You have the financial responsibility. You have the people responsibility. And I just don't know how to place people in that situation. I know there's people, I've been a CEO of whatever. But when you're shipping millions of product out globally all over the world, you're getting thousands of input, thousands of things that people like or don't like, thousands of people are trying to talk to you, and you're trying to deal with all these inputs. And I mean, I would venture to guess that someone like Elon or his staff, they have 1,000 like major decisions they may make, in a year's time. And my guess is they're getting a bunch of them, like most of them, right. And I would just challenge anybody to really truly put themselves in the shoes of the person or the management team that they're criticizing, to think that they can actually do the whole thing better, and not just like, oh, I think you could have done this better. I think you should have advertised more wider or whatever. Because my guess is they don't really understand the collection and totality of decisions that have to be made to run that business. And you could second guess and come in and second guess anybody or nitpick any one thing in any company. But to understand, like, could you have done it and got all the other things right that they did? Probably not. So am I saying you can't criticize management? No. What I'm saying is have some humility around your criticism, and just understand not only what you think they could have done differently, but if you were in their shoes, like, how would you have actually managed the situation? Again, you really have to put yourself in their shoes, and it's very difficult to do if you haven't done it and you haven't been responsible to deliver some product to the masses. It's sometimes it's really difficult to put yourself in those situations, and some of these decisions add up. There's a totality, there's a cumulative effect of some of the weight and some of the pressure that these executives have on themselves. So I would just have a bit of humility around it as you're thinking through it. Again, they're not above reproach. They're not above criticism. You're a shareholder. But I would just consider your approach and consider the totality of what you're criticizing. That's it.
Completely agree, Jeff. And it's actually, let me call it, because I'm less polite than you are. It is actually arrogant of these people to believe that they know how to run these companies, especially something so vertically integrated like Tesla, something so difficult like in the car industry, something so difficult where a hardware company will become a software company. So it is arrogant of them to have this pretension. And the way they do it, the way they hammer it again and again and again and again, you have the feeling there are 4 or 5 subjects and just, wipe it up, and another one and another one. It is really painful to see. And the other thing is, I think people who have never been in an executive position don't realize that as executives, you have to make very hard decisions, be it for layoffs, be it for decisions which product you're going to prioritize, be it for which supplier you're going to accept in the end or not. So these hard decisions, they are not black and white. They're not yes or no. They are like, okay, you're a little bit more leaning here, a little bit more leaning there. Actually, the proxy, I know we're going to talk about the proxy in a bit, it shows very well how they came to the decision that finally Texas is the choice they want to make. But you see them, or you read them, if you read, I think it starts page 28, how they went about it, how this decision-making process happened, to then find yourself being criticized on X because you didn't do this or you didn't do that. I mean, excuse me? Do you think those are idiots? This is the company where the best students in the world all want to work, right? they all get stupid the second they enter the door of Tesla. I mean, come on. None of these people we're currently talking about has the same credentials than the engineers that are going to work for Tesla. So give them a break. Trust the process. Trust the man that's on the head of it. Give him what he needs, and then just and that's why they turn bitter, because obviously Elon is wiser than me, who gets annoyed. He ignores them. He sometimes even slaps a post that makes everybody laugh, and then off we go. Obviously, that only steers the hatred that person had from the beginning. But you're completely right, Jeff. It is arrogant, I call it, the way they go about giving their advice. I'm not saying that they shouldn't propose stuff, but it's not as if they're proposing stuff. It is like, oh my God, you're dumb, you should do what I tell you to do. And that's just not the right way.
Yeah. Especially, or it's even more arrogant to try to tell people that you know better than the man who has created the best companies in the world, right? SpaceX, Neuralink, Tesla, it goes on and on, PayPal. He's proven time and time again. So his management style, what he created, the greatest product is his businesses, his companies that we're working with. And, he's now going to be a warrior CEO. So here's news that just came out that Elon has 35, maybe even more than 35 people that report directly to him. He has a very different strategy. And this is maybe one of the reasons why Tesla succeeds better than all the other companies out there that are so hierarchical, management driven, that he's now apparently overseeing Tesla's sales in North America, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And he's assumed oversight of the people previously led by Drew Baglino. The other thing is Tesla Bot Journal shared this. He took a look at all the executives that report to Elon. The average tenure was 10 years. Now that we lost Drew and Rohan, it's now 9.7 years, which
Still
again
long.
is way more than the average Fortune 100 company, which is, I think, is 3.5 years max. So this is the table that Tesla Bot Journal put together. Here are the top people that report to Elon. And this is their average tenure. Drew Baglino, of course, was at 18 years. He was one of the most, but you can see that almost everybody here is 5 years or more, maybe a few people that just joined recently. This is a strong team who've been together, and this is 35 people. So yes, you might lose one or two. 35. Do you guys have thoughts on his management approach? And what do you think about the executive team?
I would like to add just one thing to that, because I did a similar table a year ago for the board, and nobody on the board changed other than GB Strobel coming back to Tesla after his 3-year purge where he couldn't do it. And on the board, it's the same. They are longer tenures on the board than on the average companies. So people that have this feeling that in Tesla it's always wild and people come and go, it's just not true. It's just not true. The proof is in the pudding. And that is true for the board, and that is true for the executives. And I think that's actually extraordinary given in what a challenging industry they're operating, because there will be people that are coming from the engineering side and, they at one moment may have good offers to move on, or there are people coming from the software side. We're seeing it now with XAI, and we're seeing it with all these AI companies in Silicon Valley, and Elon commenting on it that Tesla has to improve the remuneration structure for these people, because they just get offers that are horrendously bigger and have difficulties refusing them. So it is not easy to steer a ship like that. 140,000 employees worldwide, growing and shifting from a hardware to a software company, and maintaining management the way it is. I can only say I think this is a very good example that things are working.
Yeah, Tesla's harder to get into than a Harvard. And then once you're tenured like this and you're above 10, 15 years and you've basically been molded in your management style, in the style of Elon Musk, who's believed to be, one of the, I think when we look back in history, he'll be, one of the greatest capital allocators and CEOs of in the world
Ever.
And you would have had that tenured under him, and your market value outside of Tesla would be extremely high. And these people are also challenged. What happens when you're in an executive role like this? you're challenged to build and produce a ready now successor and a ready in 1 to 2 year type successor on your team. That's what so their HR management process, that's what they're trying to, I'm assuming they're trying to build inside of the company and have that, and they do. I'm sure they have it. And so what you have is you have a management staff that's tenured around this 10-year time period, and then they've been built up in kind of like Elon's management likeness, and then they're hiring people in that likeness as well and training them up. So what he doesn't get enough credit for is building actually very, very strong teams. And I believe that's because you wouldn't be able to do the amount of work they're doing. And if you look at some of these team sizes, sometimes they get broken out, and you hear some of the conversations. They're highly efficient in what they do. They do not have resources that are just sitting around. They're when you go to Tesla, you go to work, and they're extremely efficient. So in terms of the 35 direct reports, some of the other, I would say, high profile, gifted CEOs, I would say Jensen Huang, you'd put him in that category. He also has a tremendous number of direct reports. I think it's important to have, to not have too many layers, so you have that direct Elon influence all the way across the board. Now, it's interesting that he's stepping up and leading sales. So obviously he's detected an issue, some weakness in the approach. It looks like he said he wanted to streamline it, simplify it. It was getting too complex. And he's already made a number of changes within the first week. And we haven't talked about that, but it looks like Tesla's, there's a fundamental strategic change happening here. And what does it mean? And what is it leading to? Why are all the inventory spiffs gone, right? Everybody's very quick to jump on Twitter. Look at the inventory discount. Look at this, look at that. And now that they're gone, but you don't hear people actually trying to analyze, why are they gone? Does Tesla believe that these vehicles are going to be worth inherently more, or what else? What's the other reasoning behind having no more discounts anywhere in the process?
I know what it means, but there you go, Herbert. Come on, admit defeat. That actually brings a very good point up, Jeff, which is vehicles built per employees. I did an analysis of that about 9 months ago. I think I should update that one. By far, the most efficient is obviously the Tesla factories. By far.
You can't do that. You can't do that per employee. First of all, the other car manufacturers, many of their employees is in the supplies. In the their supply chain suppliers,
they buy the part.
Yeah,
sure.
And so you can't. And by the way, why is it a good thing if you have the most vehicles for the most employees? It's the most
vehicles for the least employees.
That's the best part, right?
I think the metric I remember you highlighting, Alexander, was really good. Was the R&D efficiency?
Exactly.
Yeah,
and that was the revenue per R&D engineer, and that you can do a little bit of work on. But even the other companies, they actually outsource a lot of the R&D efforts. So if it's the control modules for the seat, they outsource that. But the overall R&D efficiency to produce the amount of sales, that's a metric. That's a pretty good apples to apples metric, and Tesla's was top box on that. I remember
it is. And I just wanted to add, because we discussed yesterday, I think, the layoffs in Berlin. So the only thing we know for sure at the moment for Berlin is that they're laying off 300 contractors. So they had some contractors in Berlin, and that's the part that is currently laid off. We don't know at all yet whether any of the direct employees are going to be affected.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say on the layoffs is it looks like this, I'm sure there's some performance based, but this doesn't look like hey, management team, rate your employees from 1 to 10 and get rid of, number 10. Some of that I'm sure is actually happening, but this looks like it's project based, and it looks like they're doing more outsized reductions that are project based, and it may average to 10% across the company. But I'm assuming there's some groups that are getting hit in a differential manner, and there's some groups of like software AI, for example, that are probably getting minimal impact. And again, hearts go out to the people that are impacted.
Sure do.
Okay. Let's move on to the next topic, which is the annual shareholder meeting that's happening in June 13th. So we know that Alexandra did a good job explaining this. This is Robin Denholm, the chairman of the board of directors of Tesla. And they basically said that there's a proxy statement that they'd like you to vote on, all shareholders. It's going to happen in June 13th. And they want you to make your votes. And they want you to re-elect the directors Kimball Musk and James Murdoch. And they also would like you to approve Tesla's move of the state of incorporation from Delaware to Texas. And then, of course, ratify Elon's compensation plan, exactly the same package that he had that was now rescinded by the judge in Delaware. Did you want to make any comments on that? And how do you make sure that we all are able to vote? Because it's critical that the retail investors vote en masse. Although we're hearing good news that the institutional investors, a good sized group of them, 4 out of the 10, have already said that they're going to vote in favor of this. But there's another person who did this whole analysis, says it could still be a 50-50 call here. What's your thoughts?
So, yes, every vote counts. And how would you know how to vote? The vote itself is going to happen in about 11, 12 days in the week of the 29th, because that is then 6 weeks prior to the June 13th date. There will be a definite proxy coming out there. They still have 2 weeks to wiggle some paragraphs and whatever. There can be additional information coming onto it. So read the proxy now, 443 pages, or go to that special website that Tesla has set up where they explain, in layman's terms and quite condensed what it's all about. But I think it's important that you start understanding what you're going to vote on. I think there are about 12 votes. First 7, if I recall it right, out of 4 votes that Tesla proposes, and then there were 5 shareholder proposals. I haven't even looked at those yet because there's so much material where they want you to vote against. So make your mind up, get prepared. What can you do as of today? Contact your broker or the bank or the fund manager, wherever you have your shares, anywhere in the world. Just contact them now, send them an email, say there's a proxy vote coming up, probably in the week of April the 29th. How will I get my material? How can I vote? I cannot give you clear instructions how it's going to work for each of you. I mean, I know people have, for example, in Europe, their shares in pension funds or whatever with banks that don't participate in exchange of information on voting rights. So that was your decision. And you may have now a huge tax liability if you change, because Interactive Brokers in Europe obviously seems to be the one that is the most accommodating this in Europe, a bit similar to what they're doing in the United States. So you will have to now make sure that either maybe you are at a loss, so no problem changing, maybe you're at a huge gain and then you have a tax liability. So you have to evaluate whether that is still doable. The date at which you needed to hold Tesla shares is April 15th, so Monday this week. If you didn't hold any Tesla shares on April 15th, you can't vote. You can only vote with the number of shares that you're holding on April 15th. It doesn't matter what you're doing from now on, buy or sell, doesn't matter. It's on April 15th that counts. So contact your broker, bank, fund manager, wherever you have it, and say, look, I want to vote in this proxy vote. It's coming out on April 29th. How will I get my proxy material? How can I vote? These votes usually are now electronic, meaning you get a web link, you get an email from your bank or broker, whoever, saying here is the vote sheet. Click on it and then decide for each item whether you want to have for or against. It will mention what management recommends, and then you go ahead. If you have your stock at 5 different banks, you will get this information from 5 different banks, because each of them is responsible for the Tesla stock they're holding for you. So that's the first step. But you can also vote by telephone. You can also vote in writing. And you can also vote, what was that? There's a third thing. So there may be a way of getting your votes, but you have to prove that you have the shares, that you actually sent the documentation to Tesla with your votes by registered letter to Austin. And that's a way to vote. I'm not sure about it. It's actually your bank that's going to give you those instructions. So and every bank, and I know they hate doing that because they earn as much money if they don't have to do it. So why would they bother with this? But here in America, obviously, it's very organized and IT has taken over, so it's very easy for them to do it. In Europe, it seems still very old-fashioned. but it is really your responsibility. And I mean, obviously, this vote is the most important vote we've had for Tesla for a long, long time. But even if you can't make it anymore for this one, think what you want to do next year. Because if just nothing happens all the time, you will always be stuck in the situation out of which you can't do anything. And voting rights are important. Now, let me just add one thing, which is if you're invested in funds, let's say you have an index tracker that has 4% Tesla, no, you don't have those voting rights. When you invest in a fund, it is the fund management company that has these voting rights. And that's why we're talking about institutional investors, because out of the 45% institutional investors, at least 20% are index fund managers, and then come the active managers. But those 20% index funds that are invested, well, that's the Vanguards and the State Streets and the Geos, Fidelities, and the BlackRocks that are going to vote for you. That's exactly what it means, investing in a fund, giving away your voting rights. That's why I'm no friend at all of index funds. So, and it's too late to do anything about it, because if you were invested on April 15th in that fund, that's it for that portion. But for everything else, managed accounts, pension funds, whatever, you have voting rights. So please inform yourself how you can exercise those.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. A big thank you to you and Amy and all the other people that have been helping do this. But it's very, very important, as you've said, right? This is probably one of the most important. We got to get Elon's compensation package back on track, because this needs to be settled as soon as possible. But it's also very important for you, the retail shareholder, to participate. The board and Tesla has said already that they're so thankful to the shareholders for the letters that you guys put in, that Amy and Alexandra's kind of organized. They recognize how important that was for them to actually are able to now take this next step, and they're asking for the shareholders to step up once again. Again, there's all these institutional investors who said that they're going to support in favor of this, but there's a whole group of people. Some of them are saying, we don't want to give it to them, because if they don't give it to them, the value of the company goes up. They're completely missing the fact that this could. Why would Elon decide to stay here if he didn't get his package, and then maybe not even set up this feature package for a long time? That could be the worst case scenario for Tesla shareholders. So please participate and make this happen.
Yeah, and let me add just something to reassure a couple of people, because we're seeing all these posts from Leo Kogan, who obviously doesn't want to vote for, and some of his entourage. He's a retail investor. So he's a retail investor.
Third largest retail investor?
Yes, yeah. Yes. So that is true, third largest retail investor, but he has less than 1% of shares. Okay. Mm-hmm. So even if him and his entourage vote against it, again, let me recall that Ross has voting power for 2,000 shares. So it's not, this is all crickets. So even if all these people leak together and vote against, we're talking about a very small percentage. So don't get discouraged, because what happened today is they were really trying massively to turn the mood on X, like, oh my God, this is never going to pass. This is going to be difficult. I don't expect this to be difficult. And again, this is not a vote that will then automatically mean that this is approved. Okay, there is actually text in the proxy that explains that they want this, they want to statue on this, because they expect further litigation. Okay, so they want to have this ball in their camp. They want to have this vote. They want to make sure the mission is clear. The shareholders have, in majority, discussed this, thought this through, and expressed their opinion in a very organized manner, because that's what shareholder votes are for. That you have, what we did, our letters, our surveys, and all that was wonderful, because that's only what we could do in a couple of days. But that's not an organized manner. The organized manner that's recognized by the SEC, that's recognized by all the authorities, is doing it through a shareholder vote. But it does not mean that because we voted it, that the next day it's done. It will not be done. Okay. So first of all, I expect it to go through. I don't even want to think about another scenario. I expect it to go through with a large majority. But in any case, it's not the end of it. There are people already today starting to criticize this. I'm talking about one of the ladies who's a professor in one of those East Coast universities. She's not to be underestimated. I'm trying to be careful with my words, because first of all, she knows Delaware very well. She's a very intelligent lady, but she's also very motivated against Elon. I mean, her language is very biased. She is a regular on CNBC on this matter. And she has now written a blog post last night about, how the proxy is already a source of how this could be attacked. And what she writes can be picked up from any of these class action lawyers firms in Delaware again, if they want to spin this story again, right? So it is important that each of us takes this very, as a very important matter, takes the time to ensure you have all your voting rights, make sure you will vote, and then that we have the highest possible outcome, so that if thereafter Tesla will appeal the Delaware case, which I hope they will win, which will then obviously cancel that first judgment. So all this is talking Q2, Q3 2025, when the appeal will be decided. Once that appeal is won, they can go back and say, here we have the shareholder vote, now let's do it. And that still would mean that the old package is reinstated and Elon has all those options to vest in March 2028. But this is not just over on June 13th. I want to make sure that people understand that. But yet this vote is so important.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much, Alexandra. So do you guys know that next week I'm hosting a big party?
Oh, and we're invited,
Yeah.
Jeff? Are we invited? Did you get an invitation?
You guys are absolutely invited. So obviously, there's this big Tesla earnings call that's happening. Starts at 12:30 Pacific time on Tuesday. And I'm going to be leading the hosting of this with a mega stream with Farzad and 3 other YouTubers. So everybody should come. I have a feeling this party might not be that happy. There's going to be sad people there. But Say Technologies has opened up, Tesla's opened that up, that allows you, the retail shareholder, to come in and vote up the question you want Tesla to answer at the earnings call, or enter in your own question. And then if other people vote that up, that gets to be answered. I think that what would be the most important question? I think it's what we started this call with, right? What's happening with the compact car? He's not going to share details of the robotaxi plan. That's going to be on August 8th. But there's some clarification of the guidance of what does he mean by reorganization? He needs to address that too. Why did they do this? And what was the purpose? What do you guys think would be the most important questions that you'd like to see answered?
I would say, are you made a comment regarding control of the company, and that's still important, but I mean, are you committed, you committed to Tesla and you committed to doing this work and the AI work required, at Tesla pending, resolution, of your request because I think there's a lot of just discussions and conversation of like, oh, is someone pulling back or this or that. I think to clarify that, I think would be important. And then, definitely, as you said, clarify the position on, are you building a car platform that will produce multiple vehicles, or did you put one vehicle in front of the other, and did something change, in terms of vehicle availability? I think those are some of the key actions. I see people asking like, when's the Roadster going to be ready and things like that. I mean, just use your question wisely, because they're not going to do product announcements. They're not going to do data announcements in an earnings call, but if you ask them questions around financials and implications and things like that, you may elicit a more informed response or not get ignored. So just keep that in mind as you're asking questions and voting them up too.
Yeah, you're completely right, Jeff. Well, I would like to have him talk a little bit about this law case and the proxy, right? What are his hopes for the shareholder meeting? What are his expectations? How this has been managed and how is this done? Because he's the CEO, he's a board member. He was excluded of lots of these decision-making because they wanted to be overprudent and not associate neither Elon nor Kimball to this, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have an opinion on it. Also, I want to see who is participating. Is it going to be Martin and, I'm sorry, I'm still ignoring the name of the new CFO.
Hey, Jeff.
And Yes, and Lars and Elon only, so it's going to be 4 people. And then the other thing is he's going the next day to India. So maybe he could elaborate a little bit on what's going to happen there and what's happening on Mexico. So, but again, and by the way, I think I already told you, Herbert, I won't be available next Tuesday. So I wish you all a lot of fun. I mean, this is probably not going to be an earnings call that is very, rejoiceful. The results are going to be what they're going to be, probably less than $0.50 of earnings, but the future outlook obviously is the one we're all looking for, and there's only so much he can say.
Yeah, any color on how the company goes from where they are today to the future that he intends, and something that's a little bit better than a high level, something more detailed than balls to the walls. Like, is there something that's another set of is there another set of detail that I know they're not going to release a point by point milestone schedule, but what does it mean? And have they made any decisions to kind of bottom out margins? Have they made any other key strategic, like one of the questions if I were an analyst, like, hey, I saw the inventory discounts removed, I saw the configurator discounts removed. What direction are you taking now? Is something changed fundamentally in the last month, and what is that? That'd be a question I would ask.
Agree. And one I was really interested in is, okay, you're saying you have enough compute now. How did you get there? And are we done?
Yeah, that's exactly it. The update on the amount of compute power, I think he's got good news to share on that based on piecing together some of the nuggets that's out there. And then maybe you can give us a little bit more color on FSD, full self-driving, 12.3.4, the progress that's moving forward with that, because it sets us up for 8.8. Just some sort of additional information about what he thinks about it. I mean, every time he does an earnings call, he talks about it, but it matters more now. It matters a little bit more now that he set a date of when he's going to actually do some sort of presentation. So for that's going to be very exciting. That'll be interesting. I'm looking more forward to the questions than what we already expect for margins and earnings and the volume and production numbers, which we've already saw. So. Okay, maybe I'll host the party that won't be as fun. We'll see.
You can admit that you lost your bet.
I'm not going to admit I lost that bet yet. I still am not thinking that robotaxi will start with customer cars. It's going to start with a dedicated robotaxi. I'm still leaning that way. I'm thinking. It's
okay. Right. You can have your own opinion.
He may.
Like I said, I do have my opinion. All right. Thank you guys very much. That was fun. I appreciate both of you. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you, Herbert. Thanks, Alexandra.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.